there YouTube, welcome on back to Artichoke Dip. My name is Rob, solo tabletop gamer. And this is video 2 in the series that I'm doing. And if you have not seen the first video, I urge you to go back and watch the first video so you're going to be caught up as to what's going on. To sum it up very briefly and quickly, I had built my own RPG system out of using different source materials, and I'm going through the playtesting stage of it right now. Still playing the game, but seeing what I have to add, what I may have to take away. So before I fully get into this video, if you liked the video, please click the like button, and if you have not subscribed, click the subscribe button followed by the bell icon, and every time I upload a new video, you will get notified so you don't miss one. Alright, so last night I did the first playtesting. I recorded the whole thing. It took me about 2 hours, and I decided rather than just uploading the 2 hours of video that it would probably be better if I was to break it up and talk more and less, show you the video clip and talk a little bit more about what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it. First thing I noticed right off the bat was radiation levels. So I had come up with the idea for using radioactive snow and radioactive rain within my world, but it soon became apparent that I had to have a baseline radioactivity level that I would have to roll every day to see how the environment was going to change and affect my character. So that was the first thing that was pretty well apparent. As far as encounters go, pretty well evenly matched, and, well, didn't end as quite, let me put it to you this way, it just didn't end as I expected it to, but the starting encounter went pretty well. Let's take a look. A roll for Corporal Cleggs. Move silent. He gets a +7 to that skill, so let's see. Wow, that's not bad. 25, I will take it. So he is moving very stealthy, very silently as he's moving across the landscape coming up to these ruins. As he gets to the corner wall, he hugs the wall and peers around the corner. Let me re-roll my dice here and see if they do have an encounter or not. A 0-2. Yeah, there's something in there. So I chose these creatures out of here, and it's called a hemofowl, and I'm going to read to you. Hemofowl resemble large roosters but are completely pigmented blood red. They are extremely irritable and may attack any creature that come near them. Their bite deals 1d6 HP of damage, and any creature bitten must succeed a saving throw versus poison or permanently acquire the mutation hemophilia. Hemofowl eggs are much valued for their anti-radiation properties. When the blood red eggs are broken open and the yolk swallowed, the imbiber benefits from effects equal to a rad purge shot. Okay, so with all that in there, what I have taken away from this and put into my campaign off of this is that the eggs offer food, and they can also have healing properties to them, which I'll use for hit points, because I'm not going to use the I'm only using elements of the mutant feature. I'm not using this entire system onto itself. The other thing I did as I playtest through this, I don't want to bore you too much, so this particular game system is set up to run on basic D&D, original, basic, and advanced D&D. So when you run across this, here's a very simple way to convert these old armor classes into any edition from 3rd on up. Take that number, this is a 6, and at that point count up to 10. So you're going to have 4. Actually, I'm sorry. Yep, you're going to have 4, and then you're going to add another 10 to that. So you're going to have a total of 14. Now, if you want to make the encounter more powerful, what you can do is add an extra point for every level your characters are at. So if I was second level characters, this would take it up to an AC 16, which would make it a lot harder to kill. But I just wanted to throw that in there as a little... So, and I have already gone through my encounters and I've already penciled in the AC, so it wouldn't slow things down. They would just keep things rolling for me. Okay, you can see how taking the different modules and using one system, it could create some complications. But the one nice thing about Mutant Future is that it's based off of, like I said, old D&D, and it's very easy to convert to armor classes. This is where I was saying in the last video that you want to find one game mechanic system to use for everything, and then some simple tricks you can at that point be able to convert everything over to that armor class. So it's a little trick you can use, particularly if you're using older D&D modules and you want to update them to newer systems such as 5th or 4th or 3rd or whatever edition you're playing, if you're even playing D&D. And a little trick that how you can do that to speed things up, keep everything flowing at a nice rate. So with that being said, let's check out how this encounter, well, wound up and how everything ran. Alright, so he's outgunned at this point. Well, not really outgunned because I don't have guns, but he knows he's outnumbered. So I'm going to see if I can get him to move away nice and quietly, regroup with both Sergeant Winters and Hannah Smith and explain to them what he sees and figure out how they want to go about combating this. So, looking at my skills here, Corporal Clegg, he's moved silent up here. They have on... So far, they're unaware that he's even there. So I'm going to try to roll move silent again. And of course, the Hemophile are going to get a chance too, to see if they, at that point, hear that he's there. So let's see where Corporal Clegg. Hopefully I get a high roll again. Oh, I like that one. So, a 22. And the Hemophile rolled 11. So they're so preoccupied eating on whatever they're eating here, they don't even realize that he's there and unaffected by it. So he quietly slips away. He regroups with his other soldiers there and explains to them that he sees 3 large bird-like creatures in there that seem to be feeding on something on the ground that is, he doesn't know what they're feeding on, or just feeding on something. And pretty much to move any further into this area that they're going to have to be dealt with. But what he's worried about is by the size of the things, they may pose certain dangers. So it's at that point that Corporal Clegg makes the decision that him and Sergeant Winters will clear these creatures out, and Hannah Smith will hang back. And at that point, if needed, she'll get engaged in the combat, but for most part, he's going to have her hang back just in case one of them get too wounded. She's still healthy and resourceful enough to be able to heal them. So she hangs back. At that point, Corporal Clegg and Sergeant Winters move up into position to encounter these guys. So I'm going to roll their move silent again. So Corporal Clegg, oh, rolled a 20. Rolled a 20. So he's moving at a 27. Sergeant Winters is moving at a 16. And let's see where these hemofoul come in. Ooh, 19. So, oh boy. As they're moving up into position, Corporal Clegg's pretty stealthy. He's moving along pretty quick. Sergeant Winters is a little more, well, clumsier than him. And he steps on a stick and it makes a loud crack noise that just reverberates through this area. The two closest hemofouls right here stop what they're doing and they turn around and they don't see Corporal Clegg. He's over here behind the wall, but they do, however, see him. And as it explains in their description, these large 6-foot birds, basically, the feathers on the top of their neck just fold straight up and begin to vibrate, and they begin to let out these blood-curdling, awful screeches. Now, before I go any further, I want to roll and see how how his sanity is going to hold up. How well he basically, how is he taking this? So I'm going to say the encounter's a first level, so we'll say a difficulty class 11, and let me see where he rolls in at. Well, he rolled an 8. He's not doing too good. I'm going to roll another D8 to see how much sanity he's just... Oh my gosh, 7 points. Holy cow. Oh boy. So he's just so... He's almost like frozen in fear for a second and can't believe what he is actually seeing. It's just... It's just surreal to him. Which at this point, he's froze up. These two move in for an attack. So as they come around the wall here, the first one's going to get an attack on him. And then after that, it's going to go my guys, and then the bad foul. So let's see how this goes. Hopefully it goes poorly for them, because I really don't want them to kill my guys off. But we'll see how it works. Ooh. Well, it's not good. As the first one steps in, its massive beak comes in and swoops in at Sergeant Winters. Does 4 points of damage. Oof. He screams out in agonizing pain as the beak bites the bottom half of the leg of Sergeant Winters and is trying to wrestle him to the ground. Corporal Clegg at that point, he's got the machine gun and he's got a clear line of sight right here on this huge hemofoul, and he's just going to open up his machine gun on it is what he's going to do. Alright. Oh, rolled a 20. Okay. Alright, this is going to be good. So I got 2d8 of damage coming. So the machine gun fire just barks. And the sound of the machine gun snaps Winters back into, hey, you need to get your head back into the game. But more so than that, the bullets just tear through this foul. It takes the thing right down as it pretty much all but falls to the side. It's at that point Sergeant Winters he has his rifle in hand, and he raises his rifle, scared, not sure as to what he's seeing, asking himself if everything he does see, if this is real, if he's just dreaming, or what the heck is going on here. And he opens fire on the thing, so let's see how this goes. Hopefully this goes as well as it did for Mr. Winters. I mean, Corporal Clegg. Oh. Okay, he's still shaking quite a bit, and unfortunately that shakiness has thrown his aim off, and he fires the gun, and it totally misses this hemophile, and you hear the bullets ricochet inside the ruins. I want to see if it affects this remaining hemophile. That one has not acted yet, so what I want to do is I want to roll and see how, if it's going to run from the noise or if it's going to enrage it. Let's see what happens here. So it was at this point in the encounter I noticed those aspects of Call of Cthulhu, how they really worked really well, particularly with the fear and how the characters reacted to it, and I was really happy with that. Another thing I wanted to point out about this particular playthrough scenario is in a couple of videos back where I talked about using dice to keep track of your encounters. And I use this tool a lot in my gaming, and it makes it very simple, particularly when you have multiple encounters. You can just take your white six-sided, put them down, and number them however many encounters you have at that time. Keeps track of everything, and it gives you also visual reference of what's going on, and works very well for me. So it may be one thing that you may want to incorporate into your game table to help you as well. But enough about that. Let's see how these things play out and how this encounter keeps going. Okay. So this hemophile, from the loud noise of the machine gun fire coming from out here, seeing it's basically one of its buddies fall over dead, this thing takes off running away from, it must have sensed danger and decides to vacate the area. So unless it decides to come back, that thing is long gone history. Which gets me back to this hemophile that's left. That's going to now, at that point, let's see. Yeah, it's going to attack him because he's just scared out of his wits as to what he sees right now. Ooh. Well, luckily Sergeant Winters is starting to compose himself a little bit better as this hemophile moves in to lash its beak at him. he remembers some of his combat training, and he takes his rifle and turns it sideways to block the incoming attack from this giant bird, and bam, meets up with the beak, and as he's sitting there wrestling with it, he's able to push it off. And it's going to go back to Corporal Clegg again. And Corporal Clegg, he's got the machine gun out. He's just going to try to hammer this thing down. Ooh, 19. We're going to take it. And so he opens up the machine gun, and he doesn't kill it, but he wounds it extremely, really bad. It's moving slower. There's obvious signs of blood that's now beginning to saturate the feathers of this animal, and as it stumbles around, catching its balance from blood loss and everything, it's more than apparent that the animal's not going to have too much time left. Sergeant Winters is going to re-aim his weapon now that he's got better composure of himself again and try to take this animal out. So let's see what he gets. So it's at that point Sergeant Winters raises his rifle, takes a deep breath, looks down the sight, and gets this bird in his sights. More calm, more confident, he pulls the trigger on the rifle. Cool. A loud BAM! And the hemofowl's head snaps back from the bullet piercing its skull and freezes momently and falls like a ton of bricks to the ground. It went pretty well. I was pretty happy with it. I liked how the dice rolls really brought this thing to life. Particularly, you have the older, more seasoned veteran soldier that is able to carry out his duties more efficiently, and you have the younger soldier that really the first time in the thick of the combat, he's a little nervous, his adrenaline's flowing, he's got fear going, he's got all these things, which is really just making it more just difficult for him to deal with. But in the end, he does get it together and winds up taking this thing down. But it was at this point I decided it was time to add some of that more Call of Cthulhu into the game. Add some more of the unknown, the supernatural, I guess you would say, or kind of more like an occult flavor. And the reason why I'm doing this is it's going to give me a little window to be able to either add a new character or add a villain into the storyline. I really don't know yet. Just the way that when I rolled on the random table, what came up, it even shocked me, and it worked very well, and I decided to put it into this encounter here and make things a little bit more interesting. And on top of that, well, they found a source of food as well. So let's keep going and see how this pans out. So as Corporal Clegg is moving through here and Sergeant Winters follows in behind him, he's checking all the corners and looking around, and he doesn't see any other immediate threats, and then something catches his eye that seems rather out of place. So as he looks down at the ground where the hemofowl were feeding, he notices the vegetation looks weird. It looks like wheat, but it's a larger wheat plant than he's ever seen in his life. But lying on the ground, sitting on top of the moss and everything, is a card. And as he looks at the card and he looks closer and he's trying to comprehend what he's looking at, he notices the card is a tarot card, and it is the Page of Swords, which he's kind of taken back by. He looks at it for a moment, and he looks even closer and notices that the card doesn't appear to have any weathering on it. There's no moss on it. There's no nothing. He motions for Sergeant Winters to stop. And at that point, he whispers to him, he says, "We're not alone here." He said, "Go back and get Hannah. Bring her up here and tell her to bring her Geiger counter with her." So he goes off on his orders. He grabs Hannah Smith, and they both return to the site. While that's going on, Corporal Clegg is looking around and he's studying the features of the building and everything. I'm going to roll. I just want to see. Okay. So the wind picks up a little bit, and as it blows through the windows and the various many little holes through the what's left of the structure, it makes a weird woo type of noise like wind does, and it sends a shiver down his spine. He thinks for a moment that he saw perhaps a moving shadow or something like that out of the corner of his eye, and feels a little jumpy. And before his imagination can really get the best of him, he hears Sergeant Winters and Hannah Smith approaching, which relieves him, and he does calm down a little bit. As they approach, she's just dumbfounded by what she sees. She stops and she's looking at the hemophile and studying them. So I'm going to see if she can identify any features about this. She does have skill, knowledge of biology and medicine, so I'm going to use biology. So she looks at it and she says, they're like roosters. She says, but they are just larger roosters. Never seen, she says, something this size. She takes out her Geiger counter and she turns it on and waves it over the top of the two carcasses of the hemophile. The Geiger counter doesn't show any dangerous radiation level spikes other than would be considered safe levels. So she looks up at them and she's like, "We have to take these back." She says, "This is a lot of meat. This could feed a lot of people. It's not radioactive." And she says, it's chicken." So she's she's pretty happy about what she sees. And Corporal Clegg says, "Come here, bring your Geiger counter here." She says, "I got something else I want you to look at." She moves into the building and he points down to the ground. She at that moment sees the tarot card lying there. And I want to see how she's going to react to this. So, difficulty class is 11 for sanity. And how I'm coming up with this, 10 plus their level 1. There you go, 11. She rolls a 17, so she stops and she looks over at Corporal Clegg and she's like, so there's others out here. There's people. And he's like, quiet. He's like pointing, get me a reading off of that card. So she waves the Geiger counter over the card. The Geiger counter doesn't indicate any elevated radiological threats whatsoever. It's just normal. And she looks at the Geiger counter and she turns it off and she says, as far as I could tell, she says, it's safe. Corporal Clegg reaches down and grabs the tarot card, picks it up, and he puts it in his battle fatigue pocket. He then at that point puts in a fresh magazine into his machine gun and loads it. He says, alright, he says, this is what we got to do. He says, I got one injured man. He says, I need you to attend to his wounds. And he says, after that, we are going to have to figure out a way to drag these, at least one of these animals back. And then maybe we can send somebody out later to get the other one. That is if something bigger doesn't take them. So she looks at Sergeant Winter's wound, and she does have bandages. There's 12 bandages that she has on her. I'm going to mark one off, and it heals 1d4 HP. So 3. Find his character sheet here. There we are. So she bandages up his wound and cleans it with some antiseptic and everything. She says, you're not going to die from it. She's like, your leg might be sore for a day or two. She says, I'm sure you'll heal up pretty quick. So he has a slight limp, but he takes his gun and puts a shoulder strap over, walks out towards the carcasses, and at that point, he tells Hannah Smith, he's like, in my pack, he says, there's some rope, grab that. So she goes through the pack, she pulls the rope out, and he ties up some knots around the large talons of these creatures, and him and Hannah at that point grab a hold of the rope, and they begin to walk back towards the the safe haven compound. Alright, and there we have it. That was the first encounter of 2 in my first gaming session that I went through. Now, I have to admit, I was pleasantly surprised as to how smooth it went, but in the beginning of the video, as I talked about, one of the things that I'm going to have to do is come up with a better radiation level system for the game, because as my characters branch out and explore more of this world, there's going to be areas to where, of course, there's going to be higher amounts of radiation that's going to pose more challenges for them in the future. As far as the tarot card goes, I don't know which direction I want to go with that yet. So it's going to be one of those things, my next gaming session that I do, I'm going to see how that plays out, but that's going to be much later on tonight. But one thing I want to touch the topic on and talk about, how I explained with the dice, how I use that. Another thing is difficulty class. So in 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons, in the DM's guide, it talked about how to make difficulty classes for your characters. And I really like the system, and I've incorporated it into all my game systems that I do. And it's a very simple equation that you can do with your solo RPGs. So when you are playing, and you don't even have to write this down beforehand, as the challenges present themselves, you can do this on the fly very quickly. So you take 10 plus the level of your character. That is your base difficulty class for whatever the challenge may be. Now, of course, that number is going to be altered whether it be bonuses and or penalties, of course depending on what you're playing, whether it's the use of spells or certain gear that may either help and or hinder your character. But it's one of those things that you can throw in there very quickly, very easily, and it doesn't slow down game time whatsoever, and it's not something that you're going to have to write a random table for it beforehand. It's just a little tool that you can use and you can put out there at any time, and works very well. I'm very happy with it, and I use it with all my RPGs. So I hope that little tip helps. So in the next episode, I'm going to get into the second encounter, and, well, that's where we see not everything is all fun and games. But until then, if you liked the video, please click the like button, and if you have not subscribed, please click the subscribe button, followed by the bell icon, and when my next video upload hits, you're going to get notified of it. Alright folks, until then, game on. This is Artichoke Dip, signing off.